All right, so this is day number 6 of the daily challenge. So I probably should update that headline. So this is day number 6 of the daily challenge, and today I want to talk about distractions. Now, if you want, well, first I'll apologize because this one is going to be short because I am actually headed to the train to catch a train to head to another conference, and then 2 days after that, I'm going to be taking a plane from there, flying to the next conference. So I got 2 events this week, and I'm going to keep this one short and more straight to the point. So less context. So what I want to talk about today is distractions. So if you watch the video that I did on day number 5, one of the things you probably noticed is there were a couple times that I was looking off to a different direction. I wasn't looking directly at the camera. And part of that is because there was a spider that had crawled onto my light. So as I'm filming, I see this shadow keep flashing, moving by because there's a spider crawling across the light that I was using behind the camera. And one of the things that it made me realize is that, the same thing happens in business is that there are going to be distractions that come up. Like sometimes, like you can't control the distractions that come up. I mean, for example, like I had no idea that a spider was going to be crawling on the light or whatever. And that wasn't something I planned for. It wasn't something I expected. But in that moment, we all have choices to make when distractions do come up. Is we can decide which distractions actually deserve our attention or which distractions we can probably ignore, forever, or maybe we can ignore it or we can put it off for now, but then circle back when the time is right. So when it comes down to running a business, the first thing to understand is that distractions are going to happen. And no matter what you do, no matter how well you plan, there are going to be some unexpected things that come up or things that pop up that just kind of scream, trying to grab your attention, telling you, hey, look over here, look at this, whether it's what's popping up on social media, what's popping up on the news, whether it's children running around the house or running around the background, or hey, I guess you'd say the landscaping team is outside cutting grass. As soon as you get on a meeting or your phone is ringing, this is happening, an alarm is going off. Like there are so many distractions that will pop up. And to be honest, like there won't be a way for us to completely avoid distractions unless we just cut our life off from everything else. Absolutely, which is probably not the most likely case for the average person. So the thing that we have to figure out is knowing that distractions are going to come up. The thing we have to ask ourselves is how do we manage through the distractions? Because not every distraction really deserves your attention right away. Because some distractions you probably can ignore for now. And some distractions you probably can redirect to someone else or to something else. And one of the things that have helped me a lot when it comes down to distractions in business and even distractions in life is to really sit down and be very clear about what are my goals and what are my objectives. Now, this is an exercise that a lot of business owners struggle with because no one's ever really taught you how to really sit down and create goals. And I do this a lot when I'm working with law firms, especially when we get into data analytics, where you may ask a law firm a question about what's your goal. Well, the goal is to do 5 million in revenue this year. And then I'll ask, okay, all right, how did you get that number? Like, where did that come from? Like, why 5 million? And what I realized is they just picked a number or they heard someone say it and that was a number that they picked. And when it comes down to goals, if you're going to use your goals to help you avoid distractions, you do have to make sure the goals actually mean something to you. So you do want to take the time to really figure out what are the goals that we want to aim for and what are the goals that actually mean something to us. Because if the goal actually means something to you, then when you take the next step, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot more effective. Because after you define what your goals are, the next thing is really prioritizing what activities, what things do we focus on that are going to help us make progress towards that goal. Now, That doesn't mean that you can't focus on all the other things. But what it does mean is that, hey, if there is a choice between focusing on something that is a priority one versus something that is like a priority three or priority four or five, it's like it makes it easier for you to make that choice to say, hey, if I know that these types of activities are more directly related to my goal, then I'm going to spend more time on these types of activities. And these other things over here that would probably be nice to have or nice to do, or maybe they have an indirect relationship to my goal. Well, if this one is more valuable to the goals that I am working towards, whether that's in my personal life, my business life, or anything else, or in recreation or health, if these activities are more directly related and more valuable to my goal, then I probably will look at these other things as maybe that's a distraction for right now. Maybe I need to put that off, or maybe I need to focus on these activities first. And then if I have some extra time, I can come back and I can deal with those other things. Because here's what you'll realize as you build your business is that some of the distractions that come up are really good, valuable things. Like I'll talk through one very specific one is I get asked to sit on the board of different organizations a lot. I get asked to support different, societies, different organizations. And one of the things that I have to be honest with is based on what our goals are, as far as my number one goal is to be a be a good husband to my wife. So that's like my number one goal. Then next I have my other business goals, and then there are some other personal, friendship, family goals, and they kind of work in that order for me. So when I'm getting asked about sitting on some of these boards, which could be a great thing, it could be an awesome thing to sit on some of these boards. But if the amount of energy and attention that is going to be required to effectively be a board member on all these different organizations is something that is going to compete with my priorities of what the other goals I have are, then I got to make a decision to say, you know what? While it may be great to sit on that board, I can't do it right now. And that was a decision that I had to come to earlier this year with. I used to sit on the board for a university and had to come to the conclusion that based on what was going on and the amount of traveling that I'm doing, the way that our business is growing, us launching new services, plus, managing that my wife is traveling a bit more. So we're having to manage that dynamic between the two of our schedules and realizing that, hey, you know what? I can't still serve and be effective as a board member of that university. So I had to talk to the board and ask, can I, step down from the board because just based on things that are going on, I can't do the job as effectively as I would like to. And I don't want to give them a half effort. And I don't want to take my too much attention away from what my priority goals are. And so as you really navigate that in your own life and as you navigate that in your business, it is great to remember that you are going to have some situations where distractions come up. You can't avoid it. So you got to figure out, how do we navigate through this? And or a couple of things you can do to effectively navigate through distractions would be is set clear goals and make sure those goals actually mean something to you. Because when you want to get to the next step, which is to identify what are the activities that are going to help you move closer to the ultimate goals that you want, then you have the tools that you need that when a distraction comes up or when maybe it's a good opportunity comes up, but if it is going to take too much energy away from what your ultimate goals are, or you making progress towards your ultimate goals, you got to be able to say, you know what, that might not be a good thing for now. It's not a bad thing, but it may not be the best thing for me to spend my time on. And as you start to practice this and figure this out for yourself, a great thing for you to do, especially if you're leading a business, is really teach your team how to navigate through distractions, because that is something that I find week after week, really helping the team develop their intuition about how to manage through distractions. Because whenever we run into a situation where it just feels like, hey, we aren't moving as quickly as we should, or we aren't hitting the deadlines the way that we would like to, or like there seems like there's a lot of last minute things that we're trying to push to get through, like repeatedly. And what I realized when I dug into it a little bit more, it's like, oh, because different people on the team are being distracted by these all these little things. And what I had to do as a leader is figure out, how do I help them navigate through distractions? And I will say it is pretty interesting trying to teach your team how to navigate through distractions and how to help them develop that judgment call. So I'll probably talk about that on another daily live. But that is all I got for you today, because I need to head to the train station to catch my train, and I will talk to you tomorrow.